This is Maarte. Not quite a podcast, more like voice memos you weren't supposed to hear.
It's been a few weeks since I've uploaded an episode, and it's not because I haven't been learning anything in therapy. It's quite the opposite. I think the reason I haven't been recording is because I'm processing so much that my thoughts have become very difficult to sort. There are so many things I'm uncovering and unpacking that by the time I try to organize them into something coherent, it feels like I've got 50 browser tabs open in my brain and music playing from one of them, but I can't figure out which one. And if you know me, you know that writing has always been how I make sense of things. If I don't write, my thoughts don't disappear, they just fucking ferment. So, while I haven't been uploading as frequently as I'd like, I am still writing. I am still processing. I'm still extracting thoughts from my mind and putting them somewhere outside of me so they don't take up permanent residence in my head. So if you're trying to keep up and I'm quiet over here, chances are I'm over at my blog instead. So life has been moving. Life has been moving in the way that life does, which is relentlessly. Therapy has been pulling old things out of storage boxes I didn't even realize I still had, and school has been righteously kicking my ass. I'm trying to build routines that work for my brain, and I don't have it figured out yet, but I'll get there eventually. This week, though, this week I've been sad. And not the heartbreak kind of sad or even crisis sad, just sad. And it's a different kind of sadness than I felt before. I couldn't quite explain it at first. I kept turning it over in my head, trying to find language for it, and then it just hit me. I think I'm mourning the end of mourning, which sounds crazy and fucking layered, especially when I say it out loud. But, you know, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about this part of grief before. For a long time now, I've been grieving people who are no longer here, grieving people who are still alive but no longer in my life, grieving futures I thought I would have, just grieving versions of myself that no longer exist. And somewhere, I built this relationship with mourning itself. Grief became familiar, not comfortable exactly, but just fucking familiar. It developed its own shape, its own routines, its own fucking personality. And recently I had this moment where I thought, I think I'm finally okay with letting go. And I expected relief. Instead, I felt sadness because I realized something. If I let go, then I lose the thread, that tiny thread of connection. Because when a person is gone from your life, sometimes memories become the only place where the relationship still exists, and the memories are the connection. And if the grief disappears, what happens to the last place where they still exist? And that's what makes me sad, because maybe I wasn't just mourning the person, maybe I was mourning the possibility. The possibility of a conversation, the possibility of understanding, the possibility that one day the ending I received would match the love I thought I experienced. Because there is a difference between accepting that someone left and accepting that they may never come back. Those are two entirely different griefs. The first breaks your heart and the second just rearranges your future. And there was another layer to this that caught me off guard. I realized that I wasn't just mourning the loss of the connection, I was mourning the person I was when the connection existed. You know how people say I miss who I was with them? There's a lot of truth in that. Sometimes we think we miss the person, but often what we miss is the version of ourselves that existed in that relationship, the version of ourselves that laughed easier, the version of ourselves that felt chosen and imagined a future. Believe certain things about the world that no longer feel true. And I think that's important to remember, because the beautiful parts of you that existed in that relationship were never theirs, they were yours. You know, they may have brought out those qualities, but they do not own them. That version of you is not gone. The goal isn't to become who you were with them again. The goal is to become that person for yourself. And I know I'll get there again. And you will too. I think one of the hardest things we can do after loss is just fucking sit with it. Just really sit with it. Not outrun it. Not distract ourselves from it. Not immediately jump into the next thing because silence feels unbearable. Because grief asks something of us. It asks us to witness what mattered, and maybe that's why the sadness just feels really fucking different. Because I never imagined I would have to let go, and now I'm just doing the imaginable. You know? Just one ordinary day at a time. And, you know, that's just what I've been doing.